BBC World News in half an hour on BBC Two. First, we hand over to the BBC Newsroom for the latest headlines.
This is BBC News, I'm Sophie Long. The headlines at 11. The Queen at Broadcasting House. Her Majesty will officially open the BBC's new headquarters here in central London. Her visit comes as the Duke of Edinburgh undergoes an exploratory operation in hospital. This is the scene live outside Broadcasting House where hundreds of people are waiting to greet the Queen.
And I'm Simon McCoy inside the building in the newsroom where the Queen will be visiting a little later and she'll be meeting some rather familiar faces.
And I'm Julian Worricker, and in the next hour we'll find out more about new research which raises the prospect of rising cancer rates. A leading health charity suggests nearly 1 in 2 of us will get cancer at some stage in our lives. And all is quiet in Istanbul's Taksim Square this morning. The Turkish Prime Minister has called for an immediate end to protests. Hello, good morning and welcome to BBC News. The Duke of Edinburgh is in hospital, but the Queen is pressing ahead with her engagement today, and within the next few minutes she'll be here at the BBC in central London in her first visit to the new BBC headquarters here at Broadcasting House. Her Majesty will officially open the building with a live broadcast on Radio 4. Let's head across the newsroom now and hear from Simon.
Julian, thank you very much. Yes, it's cost more than £1 billion and houses the BBC's television, radio, news and online services. It has been a huge project which has been 10 years in the planning. This is a big day for the BBC. And the Queen, of course, who's been here many times herself, will be visiting the radio station. She's going to Radio 1 first of all, then to Radio 4, where she'll be making an announcement on Radio 4, an official opening of this building before she then heads down here to the newsroom behind me, where she'll meet some familiar faces from the world of news and also having a look at the channel studio and seeing you two a little later on as well. Well, let's have a show of what's happening outside because a crowd has gathered outside the new Broadcasting House building. A lot of excitement on a sunny day here in London. The Queen's scheduled to arrive in the next 10 minutes. A little earlier I went up to Radio 1, I was talking to the DJ Trevor Nelson, and I asked him if he was just a tiny bit excited about this royal visit.
The last few days has been everybody wants to meet the Queen. Everybody is thrilled that she's opening the building, and we're more thrilled that she's coming up on the 8th floor, which is our floor. And
presumably you get more acts being here?
Yeah, absolutely. We get the building is fantastic for a start. To be on the top floor is incredible. But for artists coming here, it's fantastic. This is what they expect when they come to the BBC. They expect high-tech studios, a high-tech place to perform. They expect their fan base to be able to see it, and we're glad that we can accommodate it for once. This is finally what we wanted for Radio 1 and 1 Extra. There is a rumour that this is the part of the visit the Queen is most excited about. Well, we're going to try and make her as comfortable as possible, I'm sure. But, I'm intrigued to see how it goes down. I'm intrigued to see the Queen watching a performance, hopefully. Touch wood. A lot of people touching wood in this building today. Trevor Nelson talking to me a little earlier. But of course, Radio 1 was one of the last parts of the BBC to decide to move into this building. They're actually on the top floor here, a fantastic view of London. And if you have a BBC pass, you've got to be a certain age to get into it. I wasn't allowed into the building, had to have an escort. But anyway, that says more about my age than anything else. Ben Cooper is the controller of Radio 1 and Radio 1 Extra. And I asked him, what about this move? What change will it make to Radio 1?
I tell you what, though, today has meant that not only is everyone looking smart, but we've had a really good clean-up as well. And it's a really good tidy up. It's like sort of all the parents are coming out quick.
And the script are going to be performing later on. What else will the Queen be seeing?
So the Queen will come into the green room and meet some of the people that really made this move possible, and also some of the DJs. So she'll meet Nick Grimshaw, who does the Radio 1 Breakfast Show. Then she'll come through, see this great performance space, and then move out. And I think all the staff are going to gather around the back door and look busy. But then also, I think, probably just want to stand up and applaud when she comes out because they are so excited. They normally see Jay-Z or Rihanna, who performed at Radio 1's Big Weekend at Hackney last year, or they'll see Hollywood film stars like Matt Damon, who's come in this week. But that pales into insignificance with the excitement that they all have got today with the Queen coming.
Well, as you can see, a lot of planning has gone into this visit by the Queen to Broadcasting House, as well as Radio 1. She's going to Radio 4, and as I say, she's coming down to the newsroom a little later. It's been obviously a big week for the Queen. On Tuesday, she was at Westminster Abbey commemorating the 60th anniversary of her coronation. And back then in 1953, the BBC continuity announcer was Sylvia Peters. She introduced the coronation programme on the BBC, and I spoke to her a short time ago and asked her what her memories of that day were.
Our Queen starts on her journey from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Abbey, there to be crowned Queen Elizabeth II. But it's not only a day of rejoicing, for underlying the Abbey ceremonies and the splendid pageantry of the many processions is the deep significance of the simple fact that the Queen today is dedicating herself before God to the service of her subjects. And for the first time in history, through the medium of television, the ancient and noble rite of a coronation service will be witnessed by millions of Her Majesty's subjects. And as we watch them here, these television pictures will be relayed across the channel to many thousands of viewers in France, Holland and Germany, as well as members of Her Majesty's forces serving in those countries. From now until after 5 o'clock this afternoon, television cameras take you into the heart of London to watch and share in each phase of this great day's events.
Sylvia Peters in 1953, and this is Sylvia Peters in 2013. What do you remember of that day?
I just remember being a little bit anxious as I had such a lot to learn. And
there was no autocue, was there?
Well, they hadn't been invented. And I was just in a very tatty studio, I suppose, but fairly big at Alexandra Palace, all on my own, because everything was happening, of course, in London. But I was just going to kick off the proceedings with my opening announcement.
What was the atmosphere like in the BBC? I mean, here we are today awaiting the arrival of the Queen. Must have been very different back then.
Well, we were all excited and also a bit tense because we expected that we'd have breakdowns because we had a lot in those days, but there wasn't one, so it was quite miraculous.
Now, I know you're meeting the Queen later, and that'll be the first time since the coronation period that you will have met her.
Yes, since before then, yes. I think she came to the studios before the coronation, and I was presented then, yes. She came to see a show.
The BBC in Alexandra Palace in 1953 must feel very different from where we are here today in 2013.
Couldn't be more different. I mean, this is so modern. I mean, the technology is fantastic, and the building is fantastic. I had no idea it was so big, because looking from the outside, you think, they just slotted something in behind BH. But it's amazing, so many floors, and I love the spiral staircases. They're beautiful, like pieces of art.
Sylvia Peters, a remarkable lady, 60 years after she introduced the coronation programme in 1953. We're a few minutes away from the arrival of the Queen here at Broadcasting House. Let's just take you outside because crowds gathered there, and amongst them is our correspondent, Louisa Baldini. And Louisa, of course, considerable sadness that the Duke of Edinburgh is not attending with the Queen today, but as we've seen before, she is determined just to get on with the work.
Yes, that's very typical of members of the royal family. Of course, they like to just get on with the job, and this visit will have been planned months ago. It will have been in the diary for a very long time. As you can see, there are quite a few members of BBC staff who have gathered here behind the railings. They took their places at around 10:15, and it was really a case of first come, first served. There is a big screen here set up in the piazza just outside the entrance to the BBC, so they can see themselves. They are on air and they can hear the commentary coming from the channel as well. I spoke to some of them before coming on air. They come from all manner of departments across the organisation: film, comedy, commercial, marketing, some from news as well. In fact, I spoke to one picture editor who told me that he's on a late shift, but he came in this morning He was standing by with his camera because he said he's worked on many royal engagements, but he's always been tucked in an edit van somewhere. So he's never actually seen the Queen in the flesh, and that's why he wanted to be here today. Well, this is the Queen's 6th visit to the BBC at Portland Place, but it is the first time that she will be visiting this new extension, new broadcasting house, which has only been fully operational in the last couple of months after a huge migration, moving thousands of staff into this one central building. She has visited what is now known as Old Broadcasting House. That is the building you can see there behind these crowds behind the barriers. The last time was in 2006 to mark the 80th anniversary of the corporation's Royal Charter, and she's also made 4 other visits. Her first was in 1939 when she was still Princess Elizabeth. At that time she was accompanying her father, King George VI. So the relationship between these two great institutions dates back many years. In fact, the BBC recorded the first royal broadcast, and that was King George V's Christmas speech in 1932, and hopefully today, towards the end of her visit, the Queen will get a chance to see the microphone that her grandfather used for that first Christmas speech, as I said, in 1932. The BBC has been a hive of activity inside this morning. I was inside the offices before taking my place here outside in this very public piazza where members of the public can often walk through. There were walkthroughs going on in the office this morning with members of BBC management and palace press officers. There's also obviously been quite a lot of security and sniffer dogs doing their job here this morning. A short time ago we saw a gentleman just vacuuming the red carpet, which is just out of shot. You can't see it, but obviously a red carpet has been laid out here leading up to the entrance of New Broadcasting House. And a lot of thought has gone into this visit. The Queen will be met by the chairman of the BBC Trust, Lord Patten, and by the Director General, Lord Tony Hall. She'll meet them here outside in the piazza, and she will then proceed into the foyer of the building where she will have the first introductions, and those will be people who've worked on the actual New Broadcasting House projects, the building projects. So, for example, the architects. So lots of lineups, as we call them, where she'll have an opportunity to meet different people, but also lots of special features, I think, that have gone into this visit. She will be going right up to the 8th floor to the Radio 1 studios, as we were hearing just a few minutes ago from you, Simon, where she'll be meeting some of the DJs. I mean, I suppose this will be an area of broadcasting less familiar with her, although, Simon, you say that you've heard that she is very excited about it. She will be joining a tiny audience in the live lounge, where she'll be watching Danny O'Donoghue, the judge from The Voice, and his band The Script performing. And in fact there is a gaggle of Script fans who are also here just on the outskirts of the piazza. They are waiting primarily to see The Script, but I spoke to many of them before coming on air, and they said they're really excited to be able to see the Queen here as well. And then the Queen will also be meeting many others, including Radio 4 presenters. And here we can see the Queen's car arriving, accompanied by Lady Diana Farnham, Lady of the Bedchamber.
Lady in waiting there. She's just about to be greeted by Lord Patten, of course, the chairman of the trustees here. New Director General.
Of course, she is not accompanied by Prince Philip, as was expected, because he's in hospital, but she is with her Lady of the Bedchamber, Lady Diana Farnham, and she has been met by Sir David Brewer, Lord Lieutenant of Greater London, And she is now meeting Director General of the BBC, Lord Tony Hall, and Chairman of the BBC Trust, Lord Chris Patten. And now they proceed into the foyer of New Broadcasting House, and I can hand you over to my colleague Simon McCoy, who is inside the building. Simon.
Thank you, Louisa, and this is a big day for the BBC, spending the best part of a decade revamping this historic site of Broadcasting House, and with the Queen, Andy Griffey, who has overseen for the last 5 years the move into this building of 6,000 people, a huge project on anybody's standards, and he's now introducing some of those who took part in the process, the architects and others involved in the creation of this building. The first ever, of course, purpose-built broadcast centre in the UK, built back in 1932 for the BBC, and Her Majesty being introduced there to Lucy Homer, first of all, who is the associate partner at one of the architects at the centre of this design, to Andy Baker, who masterminded the installation of all the new broadcasting technology, to Andrew Thornton, who's the BBC Workplace Director, and to Simon Alston, who's the W1 Programme Manager. He was responsible for coordinating all aspects of delivery of this project, and a massive project it has been. And Andy Griffey introducing there Simon Alston at the end of the lineup. The Queen, of course, familiar with the old Broadcasting House, as Louisa was saying. She has made many visits here in the past, including one as a young princess. The Royal Standard flying over Broadcasting House, indicating the presence of Her Majesty on, as I say, what is a big day for the BBC, but a day also that has been months in the planning for Buckingham Palace, underlining the importance that they have for this day, and also underlined by the fact that the Duke of Edinburgh, despite his illness, this visit goes ahead without him. He's only 2 minutes away at the London clinic, and that may well have played a part in the decision for this visit to go ahead. The Queen is now being escorted to the lifts of this 8th-floor building, and she will be taken up to Radio 1, and it was suggested earlier in the week that that is part of the visit that she's most excited about. I was talking to Trevor Nelson, the Radio 1 DJ, earlier this morning, and I think that excitement is matched up there as well. With me is our entertainment correspondent, Lizo Mzimba. And Lizo, for the Queen, of course, like everybody watching, she's also a consumer of what this building produces. Do we know what she likes to watch, what she likes to listen to?
Well, of course, we've never heard her speak directly about her favourite TV programmes, but we're led to believe by people around her that she's a big fan of some of those classic BBC shows like Last of the Summer Wine, Keeping Up Appearances, New Tricks, the detective drama. We're also told that she's, of course, a big fan of Dad's Army, one of the BBC classics. I don't think anyone would be surprised by any of the names on that list, EastEnders as well. And we're also told that each summer she's had a box set of Doctor Who sent up to her in Balmoral to enjoy. So maybe that's one that she enjoys with some of the younger members of the royal family as well.
She'll be seeing a Dalek, seeing the TARDIS, and indeed meeting one of the stars of Doctor Who a little later in the lineup within Broadcasting House. It is, as you can see on the left there, the old Broadcasting House, the Art Deco facade. Now there she is in Radio 1. That's Nick Grimshaw, the breakfast presenter of Radio 1. And Lisa Gampot, who's business executive at Radio 1 on 1 Extra. And that's Twin B, who's the BBC Radio 1 Extra breakfast presenter, and there, of course, Sarah Cox. And there is Tony Wood, the operations manager for Radio 1. And Nicola De Tullio, who's responsible for the business, operational and financial running of the 2 radio stations, is standing next to him. And as you can see closest to the camera, there's Trevor Nelson, the DJ, who we met earlier, and as I say, was describing particularly the live lounge, where the Queen is going to be listening to a performance by the script. He described that as one of the greatest parts of this move into Broadcasting House. With the Queen there, Ben Cooper, who's now introducing Trevor. Ben Cooper, controller of Radio 1 and Radio 1 Extra, who describes this move into Broadcasting House for Radio 1. He says it's a bit like the family moving into a new home and you put the teenagers in the attic. You put them in the top floor and they can play their music loud, they can put their own posters up and pretty much get on with it. And that is the ethos for Radio 1, although today it has to be said they're all looking rather smart and rather tidy in comparison with normal times. And as you can see there, Lord Patten and Lord Hall watching as the Queen enters the live lounge, and she will there be introduced to the band The Script. And Lizo, for Radio 1, this has been a challenging but a very effective move.
No, absolutely. They were in other premises for many, many years away from the rest of the BBC, where they developed, I suppose, their own particular character, which is what made them such a success. But now they're coming in with the rest of the BBC here in this building up on the 8th floor. And, you know, very technically a great move, yes.
Let's hear.
Wish you could swim like the dolphins. The dolphins can swim. Though nothing will keep us together. We can beat them forever and ever and be us just for one day.
Well, a performance there from Danny O'Donoghue, and part of the BBC introducing scheme. One of the new acts discovered by Radio 1 is Indiana, whose real name is Lauren Henson, being introduced to the Queen there, who I think enjoyed it. Not perhaps the usual setting for the Radio 1 live lounge, but Ben Cooper there explaining about the BBC introducing scheme, which aims to foster new and unsigned artists in conjunction with BBC local radio stations, and artists and bands can upload their music to Radio 1 and 1 Extra. Let's just listen in.
You want to put on your best wellies and wear any nice shoes at all. Yeah. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a great time doing it. I believe this scheme, I think, is a fantastic thing to do, because we're obviously an established act, and also to have somebody who hasn't broken through yet. That's why I think the BBC is doing such a great job on this as well, yeah.
Well, praise indeed from the Director General there for those who took part in that performance. It was the Olympic theme, the Olympic anthem Heroes, with Lauren Henson and with Danny O'Donoghue, of course, most familiar to viewers as one of the judges on The Voice, who has been performing with his band, The Script. Lizo, do you think she enjoyed it?
I think she did. She listens to a huge variety of music, of course, on all the different kinds of visits she does, ranging from classical music to performances from children in school. So I think she's, over the years, learnt to appreciate all genres of music, and I think obviously today will be no exception to that.
The Royal Standard flying over Broadcasting House, and that's the newsroom. That's inside. This is the lower ground level, and that is Europe's largest live newsroom. And what you're looking at closest to the camera is the home team. That's the television, News at 1, 6 and 10, the BBC News Channel, and online, as the Queen is now taken along the third floor, heading to the third floor, accompanied there by Lord Hall. On the left of your screen there's the original Broadcasting House, that temple to Art Deco with the statue at the bottom there of Prospero and Ariel. A statue which, when it was unveiled, the then Director General Lord Reith asked to be remodelled because certain assets of Ariel was seen to be disproportionate in his view. But a statue that, of course, is memorable and iconic, as is the building that it is behind it. And on the right there you can see the new development. This is the John Peel wing, which houses much of the new radio output and online. And that piazza at the bottom of the screen with the tower there of All Souls Langham Place in the foreground there, that piazza is open to the public, as is part of the building inside. There is a media cafe where you can come in, have a coffee and overlook through a glass screen the newsroom here at the BBC, and the BBC's radio theatre is on the left, as it has been for many, many years. And Lizo, the radio theatre, radio synonymous with Broadcasting House, which migrated for a while out to Television Centre, but that's a building that is one of those that had to go for various reasons, and that was the decision they made, was to bring everything in-house back to Broadcasting House.
Yes, no, absolutely, hoping that by having everything on one particular site, that'll help strengthen that radio output, which, as you say, has been spread across various sites over the years. The Queen, of course, has a long history of visits to the BBC, and not just Broadcasting House. She's been to Television Centre many times before it shut down.
Well, we're now on the third floor. That is Fran Unsworth, who is Acting Director of News. And a cheer for the Queen as she's led through the radio newsroom. Fran's job is basically she's responsible for the deployment, the coverage and safety of more than 800 journalists and operational staff who operate out of the BBC. And as you can see, for BBC staff, it's a moment for the camera phones to be brought out as they're heading towards one of the studios here on this floor. It's the Today studio from Radio 4, which at the moment is broadcasting a programme looking at the history of this building. You see Sian Williams and Jim Naughtie there, the presenters, talking to Robert Hardman of the Daily Mail, a royal expert. And that programme broadcasting now, and it'll be into that programme that the Queen will be officially opening the building. She'll make a speech in the studio. Now, Fran Unsworth taking Her Majesty through the newsroom. And Lizo, the BBC responsible, obviously, not just for radio, for television, for online, not just in this country, but globally.
Yes, the BBC has a huge number of people working for it across the globe, helping it build up that both national and international reputation. I mean, just here in London, there are something like 6,000 people working along what they call the W1 village here.
Well, that's Kerry Thomas, who's head of news programming. And that is Martha Carney, of course, the World at One radio presenter on Radio 4, Ritla Shah, who presents The World Tonight on Radio 4, John Humphrys, who needs no introduction. Let's see if he has a question for Her Majesty.
broadcasting style, because you were both the same age, and although she does some broadcast, she was still relatively new to it. What was your role in that?
I didn't go and tell her what to do. I merely made a sort of training film.
Well, Sian Williams getting ready there for the walking into the studio. Her Majesty will sit there, will make a short speech to the nation. So let's join the programme. Let's...
And recorded it eventually, which I think was very sensible.
And has her style changed over the years?
I think her voice has changed, and I think mine has, because as you get older, your voice goes lower, and the Queen's
What we're listening to is the
and
programme that's going out on air on Radio 4 at the moment. It was pre-recorded.
Sylvia, you have such a beautiful,
Talking to Sylvia Peters, in fact, who we spoke to a short time ago, who in 1953 introduced the coronation programme. Coronation, of course, the Queen was commemorating herself on Tuesday at Westminster Abbey, when she was accompanied by the Duke of Edinburgh for that ceremonial service. Well, let's rejoin Radio 4 and listen to their output as they prepare to introduce Her Majesty live on Radio 4.
And radio. Did you follow that?
Yes, very much so. Being the same age, you can watch somebody aging and slightly and look at yourself and know you're doing the same thing.
Sylvia Peters, back at the BBC. And now, Sian and I are honoured to say that here in this new studio, the Today programme studio, we've been joined by Her Majesty the Queen and the Director General of the BBC, Lord Hall of Birkenhead, for the formal opening of this BBC transformed headquarters in the heart of London. We're also joined at this moment by listeners around the world on the BBC World Service and by viewers on the BBC News Channel. Director General.
Your Majesty, as you've seen so far walking around this building, it gives us all enormous pleasure to welcome you to Broadcasting House, and particularly so in the week in which we are celebrating the 60th anniversary of your coronation. We are all only sorry that His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh has been unable to come with you today, and we wish him, all of us wish him, a speedy recovery. Ma'am, this building is dedicated to public service broadcasting, a passion that unites every one of us here, and for the first time brings together the BBC's domestic and international radio, television and news services in this building in London. May I now ask you to declare it open?
Thank you, Director General. It is a great pleasure to visit the BBC today and to see it in its new home. I remember first coming to Broadcasting House with my father, the King, and my mother and sister shortly before the war. I came again with the Duke of Edinburgh just before the coronation in 1953. I was struck then, as I am now, by the sheer pace of change which has transformed your industry over the past 60 years. Years during which broadcasting has enriched our lives in so many ways. I hope this new building will serve you well for the future, and I'm delighted to declare it open today.
Thank you.
And there, the applause from staff and invited guests who've been listening across the building as Her Majesty officially opens Broadcasting House. As the Queen mentioned, the first visit here by the royal family was in 1939, when two young princesses were taken by their father, King George VI, and their mother, Queen Elizabeth, into a control room. There they were played some sound effects and invited to experiment with recording technology. This archive, which has never been heard before, is a fragment of that visit nearly 75 years ago.
We've had a very interesting afternoon here. We heard all the noises. Did you like them? Yes, very much. What did you like best of all? I liked the storm. Yes, I liked the storm very much. Now you can talk to Papa. Say how are you? Good afternoon.
We've had a fascinating afternoon here. It's been very interesting, hasn't it?
Yes.
Why was never able to think of it?
No,
But
no.
when it comes to the moment, it's awful.
Great honour to have had and pleasure to have had their Majesties the Princesses here this afternoon. I think it's their first visit, and I know we all hope very much that find you.
So the Queen leaving Radio 4's, that's the Today programme studio, accompanied still by Lord Hall, and there's John Humphrys with a gift, a digital radio, a special Children in Need digital radio.
Designed for children who can be sold for charity to raise £120,000, and we'd be delighted if you would accept this on behalf of the Today programme. Very kind. So when you listen to radio, very much you can pass it on.
Well, I didn't get an awful lot of chance.
No. Well, that's what I'm coming back to. You made a bit of history for us.
I think the Queen said she doesn't get much chance to listen to the radio, but it's not often that John Humphrys gets put in his place. But no doubt, royal reception will be crackling free in Buckingham Palace when that radio is switched on a little later in the week, perhaps. As you can see, the Art Deco nature of this structure is still to the fore. It's a Grade 2 listed building, and with the Royal Standard flying above it, you get a sense of the old and the new in one image. And now the Queen is looking at the World Service, and that is Solomon O'Gara, who's BBC Africa editor. He was appointed in December 2010 and has helped launch 2 television programmes for the African market, one focused on Africa, which broadcasts in English on BBC World News, and Dira ya Dunya, which is broadcast also in Swahili. Introducing him is Peter Horrocks, who's Director of Global News, who has overall editorial responsibility for Global News, including the BBC World Service, BBC World News television channels, and the BBC's international-facing online news service in English, the BBC Monitoring Service, and the BBC's International Development Charity. Andrew Whitehead, who's editor of the World Service News and Current Affairs. And Juliana Ioti, who's the Americas and Brazil editor. She used to work in her hometown of Rio for the newspaper O Globo, part of the biggest media conglomerate in Latin America, and has worked for the United Nations as an information officer before joining the BBC. Just talking there to Tin Ta Sway, who's the Burmese editor and head of South Asia, and now talking to Sadiq Sabah, who's the Persian service editor. He was the BBC Iranian affairs analyst for over a decade prior to joining the BBC Persian television service. And one of the huge benefits of this particular building is the presence of both national and global BBC journalists all in one building for the first time. And there, as you take another look at the biggest newsroom in Europe, biggest live newsroom, you can see people getting ready as the Queen heads down to get the best vantage spot from the balcony where we are. But this is, of course, a working newsroom, and whilst we broadcast across the UK and indeed around the world, not just with these pictures but with other programmes, work goes on. So many people at their desks. In the middle there, the hub, the area where news gathering is based, where the intake editors decide on the deployments for the day, and the Queen will be in fact walking past them as she heads down from the 3rd floor to the newsroom here on the lower ground floor. Lizo, I don't know if it struck you as Fran Unsworth brings the Queen through the newsroom. John Humphrys, I think, probably tried to ask her a question, but I know in the past, has said if there was one person he could interview, it would be Her Majesty, but I think it's unlikely.
I think very unlikely. I think over the years many people have wanted Her Majesty to do an interview, but one of her strengths has been the fact that she never speaks out on issues that people are interested in hearing in those kind of interviews. So I think John Humphrys will probably be disappointed for the next few years with those kind of requests. But yes, the huge newsroom there, home to 1,000 people work in that newsroom throughout the day at various times, as you say, a 24-hour newsroom on an incredible scale. You could actually fit 90 double-decker buses into the space that we have down here at the BBC now.
It's worth probably just explaining to you that there is one camera that is following the Queen, and he operates on what is called the Royal Rotor, and those pictures are made available to broadcasters everywhere. All broadcasters have access to those pictures, and the pictures you're looking at now from outside and other pictures inside the building are of course the BBC's. But when the Queen takes leave for a few minutes, we return to our cameras, and there you can see on the top right of you she's still accompanied by Fran Unsworth, who's acting director of news, being introduced to Mary Hockaday now, who's head of the BBC newsroom. And some familiar faces there in the lineup, being introduced there to James Stevenson, who's editor of the BBC News at 6 and 10, and he's about to take on a new role as head of BBC World News. Talking now to Sophie Rayworth from the newsroom. Let's just join them.
And Hugh Edwards, presented 10 o'clock news, 10 years I think, Hugh?
It's a decade. But we're in a good place, and it's a huge improvement on the week before.
And Hugh also commentated.
Exciting. For all of us.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
That's right, you came back. I didn't talk. I worked back through, you can see the other centre just... Oh, yes. They're waving at us. Weather's a very important thing.
Well, that's Carol Kirkwood, the BBC Breakfast Weather presenter. And this is Paul Wood, one of the BBC's correspondents, meeting the Queen. I was talking to Carol Kirkwood a little earlier, who in fact has met the Queen before. She was at a Women's Institute meeting with 29 others, and the Queen was asking how the weather worked and how the presentation worked, and Carol said she had a lot of interesting questions. She said the Queen was lovely, she laughed at all my jokes and asked lots of questions. We believe her about asking all the questions. Not sure about the joke bit, but anyway, the Queen moves on the lineup. She's meeting Sally Freestone, who was in charge of the migration of the whole news department into this building. It has been a mammoth task, not just on a retraining of people aspect, but also the technical aspect of moving 3 rolling news channels, as there are at the BBC, into this building. Now the Queen is going to tour the newsroom, and she's now passing, you can see behind, these pods as they're called. It's where meetings are held at the BBC, and the BBC does love its meetings, so there are these pods dotted around the building. And at the back in front of the Queen now are the various galleries where the news programmes are directed from, and there on the right of your screen you can see the BBC News Channel studio. A lot of excitement here in the newsroom as the Queen heads to the bottom of the newsroom, and she will walk along past the various galleries, chatting to Fran Unsworth, the acting director of news, passing Gallery E, and that is where they oversee the BBC News Channel output. She's having a little look through the glass to see what viewers don't see, which is the directors, the vision mixers, those who make these programmes possible, the editors of the programmes, I've been told to say, and all others who, as they don't appear on screen, but who make it all happen. Mary Hockaday now is going to take the Queen through the heart of the newsroom, the middle of the newsroom, and to the left, as the Queen looks, is the international side of the BBC's operation, and to the right is the domestic side of the operation. Something of a media scrum developing in the centre there as photographers and cameramen jostle for the best shot. As I said, this is still a working newsroom, so a lot of people are still looking at their screens. So Fran Unsworth showing her the BBC News gathering area, which is run today by Jim Buchanan, who's in overall charge, but they're the people who book the satellite trucks, deploy the reporters, make sure that everybody's in the right place at the right time and deciding what the stories of the day to be covered are. And the Queen now being introduced to those responsible for the overseas coverage as well. Now, in just a moment, the Queen will be shown the studio from the BBC News channel, and on air there, Julian, Worricker and Sophie Long, and the Queen is about to be shown there. It'll take a bit longer than perhaps was planned because of the media scrum that's developed at the top of the newsroom there, but let's join the Queen now.
Welcome Her Majesty the Queen to the heart of BBC Broadcasting House and our live newsroom.
Yes, it's a view that we share with our audience every day, but today a unique moment with a very special royal guest.
That is one of the most bizarre bits of television that the BBC has produced for some time. As the Queen makes her way past the BBC News Channel studio, you heard the roar, the spontaneous roar from the journalists within the newsroom for what may well be the image of the day as the Queen posed behind the newsreaders, Julian, Worricker there and Sophie Long. That will bring a short break for Her Majesty. The cameras are being switched off just for a moment, and time for perhaps everybody to gather themselves after that last performance. And Lizo, there are royal visits which come and go. There are royal visits that stand out as rather remarkable. This may prove to be the latter.
I absolutely think so. I think that as journalists we're given strict instructions on how to behave in the newsroom. Can we actually keep walking past the back of the news channel desk? Should we be seen in the back of shot? What should we be wearing? What should we be wearing? I think the Queen is one of those exceptions who's allowed to walk up to the back of the shot and peer through and see what's happening inside the studio. But yes, as you say, there are royal visits that do stand in the memory. I think this will be one of those for the Queen. I think one of the others will probably be when she visited Television Centre back in 2001. She saw lots of programmes being made there, saw Blue Peter being presented there, and was given one of the ultimate accolades from that programme, a gold Blue Peter badge. So I think along with that would be one of the other standout visits. Maybe one of the others when she visited the set of EastEnders, was shown around by Barbara Windsor, who was then still on the programme, enjoyed looking around such sets as the Queen Vic, and we are told that EastEnders is one of the programmes that she does enjoy watching, so I'm sure this will be up with some of those very special visits to BBC premises.
I have to say that appearing on the BBC News Channel as she did in that, well, you can rehearse these things forever and never can things turn out better than you've planned, but I think that probably did. It looked utterly remarkable. And in terms, Lizo, of this building, and let's not forget, that is what this is all about. It has cost £1 billion, licence fee payers' money, and a lot of people looking at the huge number of people that we see here will be wondering, well, what on earth goes on here, but there's a lot of television, radio and online stuff that goes on.
Oh no, absolutely. Even just with news, there's a 24-hour news channel, there's World, of course, going out across the globe, and it takes huge numbers of people, not just journalists. You're talking picture editors, graphic designers, makeup people, studio staff, to make sure that the BBC can keep transmitting across all the platforms that it is in fact present on. Of course, online as well, you know, a relatively recent innovation for the BBC over the past 10 years or so, but now one of the huge important planks of what the BBC does. And the BBC, of course, enjoys a huge reputation nationally and internationally, and to keep on enjoying that and living up to the standards that people expect, you do need a huge amount of people to do that. And now, for the first time, we've been brought together in this building, hopefully to provide exactly that. We're expected, high things are expected of us, and hopefully we do provide that.
And the people here haven't been magicked out of nowhere, because we're talking about people who previously were housed in, well, famous buildings like Bush House, like Television Centre, which for various reasons had to close, and it was imperative that the BBC did something about that, and hence the idea to create this building.
Yes, and the fact that we're all together in one place for the first time does in fact help communication between teams. For instance, a lot of the international news through World Service was of course in Bush House, while parts of television news and radio news are at Television Centre. Bringing all those people together mean that we can communicate better than we did before, and hopefully provide a better service, not just for licence payers in this country, but people who listen to the World Service and watch BBC Global News throughout the world.
If you were to pick so far a couple of moments, there was that rather bizarre moment of the Queen in the Radio 1 Live Lounge. That was a moment she said she was particularly looking forward to earlier in the week. Very rarely does she do this sort of thing.
No, absolutely. Her visits to the BBC, there have been a few, but I think this is the first time she's actually visited Radio 1. She's met people from Radio 1 before. On her last visit here in 2006, she met the then breakfast host Chris Moyles, and she asked him what time he had to get up in the morning, and he told her. And this morning, I think, was the first time she actually has visited the Radio 1 premises. But as I was saying before, you know, she listens to a huge number of different kind of performances on the visits that she's done over the decades, and I think she does enjoy things like this that are a little different. That performance from the Script performing the David Bowie song Heroes, I think was something that she may well remember for a long time.
Indeed. Well, let's just show the pictures as the Queen arrived at the BBC just under an hour ago. Of course without the Duke of Edinburgh, and the cause of sadness no doubt for Her Majesty, and certainly for people at the BBC. He's only 2 minutes around the corner being treated at the London clinic, but this is a visit that has been long in the planning, both by the BBC and Buckingham Palace, and the Queen, as has been said many times before, is one who puts duty above all, and it was important for her to be here. She later, of course, went into the Radio 1 studio and into the Live Lounge, and let's just show the images there as she went into Radio 1's Live Lounge to hear a performance from the Script. There she is with Ben Cooper, who's controller of Radio 1. And Ben and Lizo will explain to those who are not familiar with the Script. Of course, the lead singer, well known to many people, as one of the judges on The Voice.
Yes, Danny O'Donoghue, probably better known from his television presenting activities on The Voice on BBC One, one of the BBC One's most successful programmes as entertainment launches go. There hasn't been an entertainment launch as successful as that show for some time on the BBC, helping to discover new songwriting and particularly singing talent. Its particular thing is that the judges, or the coaches as they like to call themselves, don't actually see the person performing. So it's not about the image initially, it's just purely about the voice, hence the name of the programme. He's there alongside will.i.am, Jessie J and Sir Tom Jones as one of the 4 coaches on that programme. So that is where most people will know Danny O'Donoghue. But the Script, a very successful band as well. They've had a #1 album, millions of fans across the world. So an interesting choice to perform for Her Majesty in the Live Lounge, a place that's played host to some of the biggest names in music. You know, we're talking the likes of Adele in previous years have performed in the Live Lounge, albeit the Live Lounge in the previous Radio 1 building.
And performing there with Indiana, part of one of the acts that's been discovered by BBC Radio.
Yes, so BBC Introducing, it's a scheme that works with the Radio 1 and local radio stations. People can send their demos and their music in, and they do get the chance to perform on a wider scale, get the chance to perform live, and it's part of the BBC and Radio 1's remit for discovering new music talent, and it has a very successful track record.
Well, that was Radio 1, and of course the real reason, the purpose of this visit was to open this new building, and it was in the studio of Radio 4's Today programme where the Queen took part in their programme looking back at the cultural history of this building, and where she officially opened the new broadcasting house. And let's just hear that announcement.
It is a great pleasure to visit the BBC today and to see it in its new home. I remember first coming to Broadcasting House with my father, the King, and my mother and sister shortly before the war. I came again with the Duke of Edinburgh just before the coronation in 1953. I was struck then, as I am now, by the sheer pace of change which has transformed your industry over the past 60 years. Years during which broadcasting has enriched our lives in so many ways. I hope this new building will serve you well for the future, and I'm delighted to declare it open today.
Thank you.
Well, some truly remarkable images here at the BBC this morning, both in radio and indeed on television, some of which will no doubt appear on the front pages of some of the newspapers tomorrow. It's worth pointing out, of course, that the absence of the Duke of Edinburgh is something that has not been discussed directly, but Her Majesty, no doubt, feeling his absence because he loves his gadgets, and if he's watching in his hospital room, will no doubt have shared the considerable humour that there has been around here at parts of this visit. Good-natured humour when she walked up to that news channel studio a short time ago and made a live appearance on BBC News, one that lasted a lot longer than was scheduled, I might tell you. But it has been a remarkable morning. Now, a little later, the Queen will be meeting some more familiar BBC faces, Sir Bruce Forsyth amongst them. She'll also be meeting one of the stars of Doctor Who, and she'll be also talking to Sylvia Peters, who introduced the coronation programme in 1953, so lots more for her on her itinerary. But for now, this is BBC News. So in 1953 was the continuity announcer who introduced the coronation programme, and there next to her is one of the cameras that was used for that service. Sylvia Peters, who we spoke to a short time ago, saying that it was a remarkable day. They had no water queue in those days. She had to remember her script, and this is the first time she's met the Queen since then, so 60 years ago. This is Peter Dimmock, who, when television was still in its infancy, he masterminded a wide range of transforming broadcasts for the BBC. He oversaw the Queen's coronation coverage in 1953, and that was then watched by 22 million people. He also oversaw the first television of the Grand National in 1960. And some of our viewers may remember him as a presenter of Sports View, which later became Sports Night. He was also the first presenter of the Sports Personality of the Year award in 1954. He was also crucial in the decision to broadcast the coronation, and indeed spoke to the Queen at the time, and she sought his reassurance. Now, she's introduced to Ben Cohen, Danny Cohen, who is controller of BBC One, and Danny will introduce now David Dimbleby, of course familiar to many viewers. Let's just listen in.
It was all the people who were resting on seats and pretending to be Queen and being crowned in the religious license. And then I did the service on Tuesday. A lot of people Always praying. Yes, that's right.
But it wasn't it.
And the long part.
All put in one place.
They've got the long.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
Winkleman follows Sir Bruce Forsyth. Sorry about the breakup of your picture. Many broadcasts being held here today, obviously, and these pictures being beamed around the world live from our camera inside the foyer. Mary Beard, Professor of Classics at the University of Cambridge, Royal Academy of Arts, Professor of Ancient Literature, and the presenter of Pompeii, Life and Death in a Roman Town for BBC Two. Jenny Agutter, of course, best still known for her role in The Railway Children, but most recently for her appearance in the programme Call the Midwife.
It's a wonderful combination of all these two beautifully and successfully put together.
Now, the Queen passes the Dalek without incident, and Danny Cohen now taking her into the media cafe here at the BBC. Now, this is open to the public, as is much of the interior of the building. Now, there she meets one of the stars of Doctor Who. That is Jenna Louise Coleman, Doctor Who's assistant, of course. Alex Jones, presenter of The One Show, alongside Fiona Bruce there.
It can be incredibly noisy, but very, very energetic, exciting to work. Thank you very much.
Stacey Dooley, presenter best known for appearing in a number of BBC Three documentaries highlighting child labour, and Greg James there, the Radio 1 DJ. And Reid, next to him, familiar face, appearing as Celia alongside Derek Jacobi in the six-part BBC rom-com Last Tango in Halifax. And that is the building, of course, that the Queen has officially opened, Broadcasting House in the centre of London there. And what has been an eventful morning for staff, who were all told to stay in their seats and get on with their work as the Queen went through the newsroom a little earlier. And it didn't quite go to plan, it has to be said, but many of the images of this morning will be appearing in the papers, no doubt, tomorrow morning. Now, there is a further unveiling to be done. There's a small plaque that the Queen will unveil inside the media cafe. Lord Patten there, as you can see, introducing more people to Her Majesty. 200 members of staff are meeting the Queen shortly at a reception, which will be out of camera. It gives me great pleasure to introduce... indeed, shock. Sir Bruce Forsyth is here with me.
What's he doing in a place like this?
You're supposed to be out there.
Yeah, but I work for the BBC. I'm entitled to be here. Did you see all the crew stand up when I walked in? Well, maybe that was a lie.
A big day for the BBC.
Oh, it is a great day for the BBC. About time BBC had a great day. It really is. And she is so gracious, the way she comes in. I mean, that is hard work. I know you do a few public appearances and all that, but to do what she did day after day, meeting people, being interested in what they're doing, she does a great job. You have to see her in action.
It's really not to be taken lightly for somebody of any age
stage. And of course the Duke turns 92 next week, so I think we can expect some royal visitors at some stage.
Richard Lister, thank you very much. Well, let's join the Queen now in the Media Cafe here at Broadcasting House.
BBC and all our audiences around the country and the world. I'd like to thank you very warmly for opening our new headquarters today. The new headquarters of a great British national institution and of one of the greatest broadcasters and news gatherers in the world. I know that I speak on behalf of all my colleagues and all who work for the BBC in sending our best wishes to His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh for a speedy recovery. He came and visited us in Salford not very long ago, and I think we all very much enjoyed that visit. As you said upstairs in the Today studio, ma'am, you first visited Broadcasting House before the Second World War. The clock has ticked on. 60 years ago, we televised the coronation, which was a really decisive moment in the development of television. And since then, we've been recording the sometimes turbulent, never boring events of the world's and Britain's history, but also chronicling in Britain your own extraordinary record of dutiful service, which we have done with boundless admiration. So it's a particular privilege for all of us that you've come to open this new headquarters today, and perhaps I can ask you just to unveil a plaque which commemorates this moment. I mentioned the coronation 60 years ago this week, and this as a memento of your visit, are copies of the front page of the Radio Times, both then and now. So I hope you'll find somewhere on a wall to hang it. Shall I give it to you? Yes, and that's just all the ones with you on, ma'am.
Well, the Queen will also unveil a plaque which will eventually be housed in the reception of Broadcasting House. It was commissioned by the BBC's design agency and takes the iconic image of the classic BBC microphone and gives it a modern interpretation. Well, there you can see the royal car in the piazza outside Broadcasting House, an indication that the Queen will shortly be leaving. A visit that will be memorable for all those who took part, and for those watching, some images that will stick in the mind, from Radio 1 to Radio 4 to her appearance on the BBC News Channel. A remarkable morning, and one not overshadowed by the absence of the Duke of Edinburgh, but certainly with his absence in mind. Now, as she leaves, the Queen will be handed a posy of flowers, and it's also worth mentioning that there are some reporters from the BBC Schools programme also covering today's visit. Now, handing over the flowers are Ida and Tai, who are two students from the local school, which is All Souls Primary School, just round the corner from the BBC. So a farewell from the chairman of the trust, Lord Patten, and from the Director General, Lord Hall. And the end of what has been an enjoyable, I would say that suggests, visit for Her Majesty to Broadcasting House. So the car leaves the piazza to an enthusiastic crowd. The Queen's destination thought to be Buckingham Palace, but worth bearing in mind that the hospital treating the Duke of Edinburgh, the London Clinic, is just 2 minutes away from here, and the Duke in hospital where he was admitted yesterday. So as the Queen leaves Broadcasting House, the new Broadcasting House at the top of Regent Street in London, it has been a remarkable morning. Plenty more from here, but now let's get a weather update and we can join Helen Willetts. How was it for you?
Wasn't it wonderful, Simon? And the sun was shining as well, although the skies outside looking a little milky now, because although the sun has been shining here and across most of the country, it's a different picture in some areas, and I'll come to that in just a moment. So some warm sunshine to enjoy today and for the weekend, a little breezier in the south, but let me show you why the cloud is piling in across parts of central and southern England now, even turning the skies a little milky here at New Broadcasting House. And that's because we've got these showers that have developed. They've moved across the channel and they've been giving the odd rumble of thunder